Hi everyone and welcome to this month's Mortgage Podcast. Today I'm pleased to have with me Kensington. We're going to look at green mortgages from a lender's view. I'd like to welcome Eloise Hall, Key Account Manager at Kensington. Welcome Eloise.
Hello, thank you very much for having me, Anita.
Can you give us an overview of Kensington and where you sit in the market?
Absolutely. So Kensington is one of the longest standing specialist lenders, lending through our fantastic intermediary partners for just over 25 years now. We pride ourselves on our quick service, so currently working to a one-day turnaround on new applications and documents, even having cases this week go from app to offer in just one day. But we do specialise in being a specialist from customers who have complicated income or are self-employed, to helping those that otherwise might not be able to get a home or struggle to get onto the property ladder, with propositions like our Heroes range for key workers or customers who've had credit blips. So yeah, that's really our main proposition here at Kensington.
Great, thanks for that. We see the purchase market is still buoyant with lenders, many reporting record applications. We've got inflation hitting 9%, and with all the problems we're facing with the economy and, of course, the war in the Ukraine, do you believe this will continue?
Well, it's a very difficult question. So if you'd asked me this question at the start of the year with stamp duty coming to its end, and I would have said, oh yeah, we're going to see a very different market. But like you say, we've had a really buoyant start, seeing even though there's complaints across the industry about housing stock not really being there, we've seen fantastic numbers of business, including purchases. So it's a really difficult one to pin down. I think there's going to be some great months for purchase, for remortgages. I mean, there's lots of maturity months this year, so I'm sure it will be another buoyant year, absolutely.
Yeah, can you see the year being split maybe between the purchase market the first half and maybe remortgages, product transfers the second half?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some big months towards the end of the year for the product transfer side, which hopefully should time in really well with Kensington's launch into that space as well. But yeah, I think there's going to be maybe a year of two halves would be fair to say, Anita.
The other thing, and I know you won't want to be pinned down on this, but I'll ask, many figures flying around at the moment with regard to how the year's going to finish. I've heard figures in the region of 300 billion. Does Kensington have a view on that?
Well, yeah, like you say, so there's been lots of figures across the industry. I mean, UK Finance has come out with some figures. Again, like you say, 300 billion is probably a fair estimate to say there. I'm very much one of those people that wouldn't like to commit myself to a number. I think it's very much a crystal ball year, and we'll have to see how things go. But there's definitely lots of changes that's going to be happening within the economy itself, which will then have a knock-on effect with the mortgage market. Rates of inflation, like you mentioned before with Ukraine, we know one of the price caps is on gas and electricity, will come to its end in October, or I should say changes will come in October of this year. So I think there's going to be lots of things that will play in that will impact the market. But I think 300 billion would be a fair shout.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if we had a crystal ball, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind one.
Yeah, thanks for that, Eloise. Moving on to green mortgages, a hot topic at the moment. I understand the proposed EPC regulation deadline for all new tenancies to have a minimum C rating has moved to the end of December 2025, and for existing tenancies, December 2028. Is that correct?
Well, yes, so it's still proposed at this point, but that is as helpful as the government has been so far. So that's definitely the indication that we should be considering and working towards at this stage, yes.
From your research you're carrying out, do you think buy-to-let landlords are aware of the changes that are coming up? And if so, are they taking any action?
To answer that in a short way, no. I don't think landlords, customers are aware of any of the things around the EPC ratings. although the government committed to net zero emissions back in 2019 to get to net carbon neutral by 2050, there's been a little bit of work done from lenders, from brokers on really getting into this space, but I feel like it's just starting. And I think these kind of conversations are going to become more and more frequent with the landlord customers as we go forward. So I think there's still a lot still to do in that area.
Where do you think it's all heading? Do you think it'll be driven by EPC ratings? Because obviously it's going to be difficult, for example, if there's an older property.
Absolutely. So there's some proposals in place at the moment around something called MEESE, which is minimum exclusions for properties, basically. And it basically looks at different types of exemptions that would apply. So, for example, there's a 7-year payback exemption, which basically means if somebody was to improve their property, perhaps with a heat pump, and the cost of that heat pump didn't go back into their pocket within 7 years in terms of energy savings, it's something that they would be exempt from. There's a devaluation exemption, which means if you had a beautiful kind of grade listed property with stained glass windows, for example, instead of replacing those and putting triple glazing in for the EPC rating, that would devalue the property. So there are exemptions in place to mitigate some of those, but there's definitely more work that needs to be done and things that lenders need to be more aware of in that space when it comes to that. But I think it will be very much EPC led. I think that's really the main way the government can target it. I mean, they're already talking about getting commercial properties to have a minimum of a B rating by 2030, and then all properties across the board, including residential, to have a minimum of C by 2035. So EPC does seem to be the biggest focus and the biggest way they can target that. But I do know the government's constantly improving how they score the EPC rating. So there might be properties out there that have got a current EPC certificate, which the customers that live within that home, the homeowners, have done nothing to the property, but their EPC rating might have improved because they've changed the metrics and how they work it all out. So there's lots of things that are currently going in and towards that.
Do you have a link to the information you just given out there?
Absolutely. So on our website at Kensington, we've got an EPC section and we refer to what's called the EPC register. You can either get to that via our website or you can just Google EPC register. It's a government website where you can type in any postcode and you'll get the list of properties within that postcode. And 9 out of 10 of them will have an EPC certificate. They're not all within date, but within that EPC certificate, it gives you information around their potential grade of EPC, what band they fall into. It'll tell you how much certain improvements, recommended improvements, would cost. It would tell you how much you would save by doing those improvements. So it's a really informative tool and definitely something that brokers should be aware of to run through with some of their customers, whether they're residential customers looking to do home improvements or those portfolio landlords that need to meet those EPC ratings we know are coming in.
Moving on, can you see the smaller landlord with maybe 1 or 2 properties not wanting the pain or expense of bringing their properties up to a C rating? Can you see them disposing of their buy-to-lets?
Absolutely. And although it's great to some extent that it opens up the market in terms of, stock, because we hear about how competitive it is out there due to low stock and high demand. So it will open up the market a little bit in that sense. There are things to consider with this, that more landlords might be looking to buy new build properties to rent out or higher rated EPC rated properties, which will cause more competition for first time buyers looking at similar solutions or home movers at those similar property types. And I think it's perhaps where we'll start to hear what's being talked of as the green value. So we've all heard about the new build premium, where you buy a new build house that's a bit more expensive. But I think we'll start to see more demand around these higher EPC rated properties. And they've called this the green value. So you're paying more money for a higher EPC rated property. I know Zoopla have done some research and they're currently monitoring EPC rated sales and to see if there's any trends and increases yet. They haven't seen anything, but I definitely think that's something to come, particularly when these landlords will start offloading those properties and maybe investing in those other EPC rated ones.
It's definitely an evolving market out there, isn't it?
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. I think, from my point of view, There's still no guidance coming out from the government, which as an industry we need urgently as time's ticking away. Are you as a lender speaking with the likes of IMLA and UK Finance to lobby the government?
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done here. There's a lack of understanding across the board, and it's by working together we'll get there. I know that the IMLA, so the Intermediary Mortgage Lenders Association, in their 2020 manifesto, they've kind of put in there about reviewing green mortgages, EPC ratings of domestic properties. And they actually did a really good bit of research back in 2020 around green mortgages in a green report, where they did lots of background about how customers see the market, what brokers are doing, what lenders need to be doing. So there's some great statistics that they have in there. So I'd recommend anybody to go onto the IMLA website and have a look at that green report, because there's lots of kind of good initiatives they're focusing on that both support customers, lenders and brokers alike. And it's hopefully something that by working with organisations like this and UK Finance, that we'll be able to get some more concrete information and best be able to direct our customers and brokers.
How do you see landlords financing improvements if they're on a fixed term mortgage and the lender can't help?
Absolutely. I think this is really a piece for lenders to look at, because,
Mm.
in my opinion, lenders should be looking at ways to support their existing customers with ideas like green further advances. At Kensington, we have two different propositions. So we have our green eco cashback mortgage, which is for any rated EPC rated property that has somebody in it that's looking to improve that EPC rating. So we would pay £1,000 cash back for somebody if within 12 months have improved their EPC rating. So that's kind of the incentive to say we're not penalising somebody who's got not enough available funds to have already bought a really high rated property. We're giving everybody the opportunity to make those improvements. The next kind of option we have is rewarding somebody with an immediate cashback that's already bought an A or B rated property. So there's kind of two ways to look at green, and it's about making sure we're not penalising either side of the market. And that's definitely a piece for lenders to look at. But then also supporting the existing customer side is important. I'd probably say too that brokers should absolutely be considering this now too. Obviously, in a rising rate environment, customers will be talking about longer term fixes potentially, but it's really worthwhile looking at, especially if they're a buy-to-let customer, looking at their wider portfolio to see, okay, so you're looking to do a like for like remortgage on one of your buy-to-let properties, but I can see the rest of your portfolios are D-rated or an E-rated. Perhaps we maybe need to have a conversation about capital raising on this property to support the portfolio, and really having those conversations at this stage rather than tying in for those longer terms that will maybe kind of tie up some more financing and funds for that customer. So really kind of forward planning is important from both lenders and brokers' sides at this stage.
Yes, what I can see here, Louise, is we need to help the advisor, because there's a thin line between the advisor giving advice to the client on his mortgage and not being a home improvement expert.
Absolutely, completely agree with you. I think there's definitely some key bits of information that will be great for a broker to impart onto their customer. So things like, for example, the fines that landlords could get, to really incentivise them to make sure they're getting the right advice from the right people. Because, for example, at the moment it's £5,000 if a landlord doesn't have the right EPC rating. That's going to go up to potentially £30,000 when the new C rating comes in. So I think that's a strong incentive. And it's also to kind of educate customers to make sure they're doing their own research, to say, you need to be aware that certain mortgage lenders won't like the cavity wall insulations, things like that. They can damage properties, and make sure cowboy builders aren't taking advantage of those customers. But it really is for brokers to make sure they're giving an element of knowledge, but not becoming anything other than a mortgage advisor, and giving them mortgage advice, and making sure that customers given the tools to go do that work and research themselves.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's all of us working together. It's the lenders, it's us working with you guys, and it's the advisors working with their clients. And hopefully, with everything that's going on, we come with the right outcome once the government really gets behind us and gives us guidance on it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It definitely will be a team effort, in my opinion.
Great. That's great. Thanks very much for that, Eloise, for a real good comprehensive overview. For further information about Kensington, what's the best way to contact you?
There's many different ways to get in touch with Kensington. The first way is if you go onto our website, you will find your contact details for your local Kensington BDM. And when you reach out to your local Kensington BDM, you can do so via email or by telephone. We've also got a telephone team here at Kensington, so you can either contact them by giving them a ring, or we do have a live chat function on our website too. So plenty of ways to get in touch. And I would really recommend doing so, either trying to get that information from your BDM, either from a more educational perspective, or getting in touch about any of our propositions and range, and we'll be more than happy to support.
I hope you found this interesting. There's a lot of work to be done on this. As a network, we're working closely with L&G Mortgage Club, along with the lenders. We're also in the process of developing a green page on the advisor's site, where we're looking to include latest news, resources and F&Qs. Also, watch out for updates in the weekly newsletter. That's it from me for another month. Thanks for listening and see you soon.